Welcome to Epic World History. For 3 decades, England was torn apart by war. Red rose against white, Lancaster against York. Kings rose and fell, brothers turned upon brothers, and the crown itself became a prize of blood. From the madness of Henry VI to the rise of Richard III, from betrayal to redemption, the realm burned and was reborn. The Wars of the Roses began as England tore itself apart. 2 royal houses, Lancaster and York, both descended from the same royal line, each claimed the right to rule. It was not just a war of crowns, but of ambition, pride, and vengeance. The Red Rose of Lancaster faced the White Rose of York, and their struggle would plunge medieval England into 3 decades of chaos. Beneath the banners and bloodshed lay a broken monarchy, a fragile realm where loyalty shifted like the wind. The English Civil War had begun a battle not only for the throne, but for the very soul of England. The roots of the Wars of the Roses lay deep within the reign of King Henry VI. A weak monarch plagued by mental illness, Henry's inability to rule fractured the realm. The nobles grew restless, factions formed, and the House of York, led by Richard, Duke of York, began to challenge the king's authority. The once powerful Lancaster dynasty now faced its greatest threat from within England itself. Whispered plots spread across castles and courts, and the seeds of rebellion were sown. By the 1450s, England was collapsing under political chaos and military defeat abroad. The loss of the 100 Years' War against France humiliated the crown and drained its treasury. Discontent turned to open rebellion. The common people starved while nobles schemed for control. The fragile peace crumbled, and the stage was set for war between Lancaster and York, a conflict that would engulf the nation. In 1455, the first blood of the Wars of the Roses was spilled at the Battle of St. Albans. Richard, Duke of York, led his forces against the royal army loyal to King Henry VI. The narrow streets of the town became rivers of blood as nobles and knights clashed. York's victory was swift but uncertain. It gave him power, yet deepened the hatred between the 2 houses. The English Civil War had truly begun. After the first battle, England entered a tense truce. King Henry VI was restored to the throne, but his authority was hollow. Margaret of Anjou, his ambitious queen, ruled in his stead, determined to destroy the Yorkists. The peace was fragile, a mere pause before greater storms. Spies filled the castles, and every feast hall hid betrayal. England was a kingdom of masks, where loyalty meant survival. Queen Margaret of Anjou refused to surrender when the tides of war turned against Lancaster. Fierce, intelligent, and unrelenting, she rose as the true heart of her faction. Acting in the name of her frail husband, King Henry VI, and their young son, Prince Edward, she summoned armies from loyal shires and forged alliances through fear and persuasion. Under her command, the war grew darker and more ruthless, no longer a contest of noble titles, but a desperate struggle for power, vengeance, and survival. Her fiery presence on the battlefield became legend, inspiring men to fight and terrifying those who stood against her. Across England, the White Rose of York clashed with the Red Rose of Lancaster once more, and the soil of the realm ran red with the blood of kin and crown alike. In the bitter winter of December 1460, the Duke of York's dreams met a tragic end upon the fields of Wakefield. Believing victory within reach, Richard of York marched confidently only to be caught in a deadly ambush by Queen Margaret's forces. Snow turned crimson as swords clashed beneath the cold, gray sky. Surrounded and outnumbered, York fought bravely until the very end. His fall was not only the death of a man, but the collapse of a generation's ambition. In a brutal act of vengeance, his severed head was displayed on the gates of York, a paper crown mockingly placed upon it. Yet from this cruel humiliation rose something far stronger. His young son, Edward, hardened by grief, inherited his father's cause. The House of York had lost its leader, but its fire was reborn in the flames of revenge. From the ashes of his father's defeat, Edward, the young Duke of York, rose with remarkable brilliance and determination. Only 19 years old, he commanded his armies with a confidence beyond his years. In March 1461, the snows of Towton ran red as his Yorkist soldiers clashed with the Lancastrian host in the fiercest battle England had ever known. Amid swirling blizzards and deafening cries, tens of thousands fell, their bodies frozen in mud and blood. When the smoke cleared, Edward stood victorious. The crown, once mocked upon his father's lifeless head, now rested upon his own. Proclaimed King Edward IV, he united the Yorkist cause beneath a single white banner fluttering against the cold northern wind. Yet beneath the triumphant cheers lay unease, for in every victory, the seeds of future betrayal were already taking root. Under King Edward IV, England appeared reborn from the chaos of civil war. For a fleeting moment, trade thrived once more, guilds reopened, and merchants filled the ports of London with goods from across Europe. Markets buzzed, cathedrals rang with bells, and nobles returned to their estates, believing peace had finally returned. The young king, tall and charismatic, ruled with confidence and charm, surrounding himself with loyal lords and lavish ceremonies that dazzled the realm. Yet beneath this glittering surface, old wounds still bled. The defeated Lancastrians plotted in exile, and within Edward's own court, envy and mistrust simmered behind smiles and golden goblets. Beneath the velvet and candlelight, ambition whispered like a hidden flame. England was calm on the surface, but beneath its crown, the storm of betrayal was already stirring again. Among the powerful nobles of Edward IV's court, none shone brighter or fell harder than Richard Neville, the Earl of Warwick. Known across Europe as the Kingmaker, he was the architect of Edward's rise to the throne, the man who had shaped a king. Yet ambition and pride would soon turn ally into enemy. When Edward defied his guidance by secretly marrying Elizabeth Woodville, a commoner of beauty and wit, Warwick's influence began to crumble. Humiliated and enraged, he felt betrayed by the very monarch he had created. In the flicker of torchlight and whispers of conspiracy, Warwick turned to the Lancastrians, swearing vengeance against his former friend. The balance of power once again shifted. Across England, red and white banners were raised, and the realm prepared to drown in blood, once more led now by the man who once made kings. By the autumn of 1470, the tide of fortune turned once again. Betrayed by the very ally who had once made him king, Edward IV fled England under the cover of night, his banners torn and followers scattered. The great Earl of Warwick had triumphed for now. From the shadows of captivity, the long-imprisoned Henry VI was brought forth and placed once more upon the throne. But the man who sat beneath the red banner of Lancaster was no longer the king of old. Years of confinement had drained his strength, leaving him pale, withdrawn, and haunted by madness. His crown rested uneasily upon a trembling head. England rejoiced and mourned at once, for peace was only an illusion. Two kings now claimed the realm, and the nation once again teetered on the edge of ruin, divided by roses and ambition. In the spring of 1471, the exiled King Edward IV returned to England with iron determination and a loyal army at his back. His eyes were set upon one man, Warwick, the kingmaker, who had once crowned him and later betrayed him. On Easter morning, thick fog rolled over the fields of Barnet, shrouding the armies in ghostly mist. Confusion turned the battle into chaos, where allies mistook friends for foes, and brother fought against brother. Arrows hissed through the white haze, steel clashed blindly, and cries of war echoed through the fog. When the mist finally lifted, Warwick lay lifeless among the fallen, his ambition silenced forever. Edward stood victorious once more, reclaiming his crown and his kingdom. Yet though the Yorkist banners rose again, England's peace remained fragile. The red rose of Lancaster still waited in the shadows. The victory at Barnet left Edward IV determined to end the war once and for all. In May 1471, his armies marched upon Tewkesbury, where the last hope of the Lancastrians gathered under their banners. The battle was brutal, and final Prince Edward, the young heir of Henry VI, was struck down amidst the carnage, his dreams of reclaiming the throne dying with him. Within days, the shadow of Lancaster was snuffed out completely. Henry VI, frail and broken, was taken to the Tower of London, where candlelight flickered against cold stone walls. There, under the cover of night, the deposed king met his silent end murdered in his cell, his crown forever lost. The House of Lancaster was no more. Edward IV stood unchallenged, his white rose triumphant at last. And though England lay quiet, its peace was written in blood. Victory had crowned Edward IV, but peace remained fragile within his own bloodline. The crown that shone upon his head cast long shadows that reached even into his family. His brothers, George of Clarence and Richard of Gloucester, once loyal allies, now simmered with envy and mistrust. Clarence, impulsive and ambitious, whispered with traitors and dreamed of his own claim to power. When his schemes were uncovered, the punishment was as strange as it was brutal. Legend says he was drowned in a barrel of his favorite wine, the final toast to his betrayal. Richard, quiet and watchful, stood by his brother's side, his loyalty unbroken, or so it appeared. In truth, behind the silent eyes of Gloucester, the seeds of destiny were already growing, and the peace Edward had built was beginning to crack once more. In the spring of 1483, England was shaken by sudden tragedy. King Edward IV, still in his prime, fell ill and died without warning. His unexpected death left a fragile realm and two young sons, Prince Edward, soon to be Edward V, and his brother Richard of Shrewsbury. The crown passed to the child king, who was placed under the protection of his uncle Richard, Duke of Gloucester. At first, the nation grieved and trusted the loyal brother of the late king. But whispers of ambition soon spread through court halls and city streets. Within months, the young Edward and his brother were taken to the Tower of London for their safety. There, behind its stone walls and iron gates, the princes vanished, never to be seen again. The light of York dimmed, and the shadow of Richard III began to rise. Richard seized the throne, declaring himself King Richard III. He claimed the princes were illegitimate, but whispers of murder haunted his rule. To some, he was a usurper. To others, a man securing order. His reign was marked by reform and by guilt. The shadow of the lost princes followed him wherever he went. Across the sea in Brittany, a new claimant waited Henry Tudor, a distant descendant of the House of Lancaster. With support from exiles and French allies, he vowed to reclaim the throne and unite England once and for all. As his fleet set sail, the final chapter of the Wars of the Roses began. In August 1485, Richard III met Henry Tudor at Bosworth Field. Richard fought bravely, crying, "A horse! A horse! My kingdom for a horse!" But fate had turned. Betrayed by his allies, Richard fell, the last English king to die in battle. Henry Tudor emerged victorious, ending 3 decades of civil war. With victory at Bosworth, Henry became King Henry VII. To secure peace, he married Elizabeth of York, uniting the red and white roses. The Tudor rose became a symbol of unity, ending generations of bloodshed. A new era began, one that would shape the destiny of England for centuries. The Wars of the Roses ended, but their legacy endured. The conflict had reshaped England, its monarchy, its nobility, and its people. Out of betrayal and blood arose a dynasty that would lead the nation into the modern world. The Tudors restored stability, but the ghosts of Lancaster and York lingered still, whispering through the corridors of history.